Alright, let's go over this problem. We need to find the domain of this rational function. We've been learning about rational functions. It's just a fancy way of saying a fraction, but with polynomials. And we just reviewed, when is it bad? Crystal, when is it bad? Yes, it's bad when students don't do their homework. It's bad when they copy and cheat, but for fractions, when is it bad? Where's the zero, Crystal? Now, if you ever forget, you can always put that into your calculator, right? 2 divided by 0, and it'll say error. Class, this is called what? 0 or undefined? Undefined. So this is kind of like a big idea that we've been learning. Okay, now this problem is a rational function that actually combines two ideas. Okay, the first idea is the square root. We've been learning about square roots, and in this problem I want the square root to be what? I want it to be positive. So I'm going to highlight, pay attention, the radicand. That just basically means everything underneath the radical. And that is what I am making now greater than 0. Now pay attention. In the other day's lessons about square roots, turn to the problem. I don't have any square roots. Pull up a different class. In yesterday's problem, notice how we took the radicand and we set it greater than or equal to 0. Pay attention, because it's okay if it's equal to 0, but in this problem I do not want it equal to 0. Because if it's equal to 0, then it's something divided by 0, and that's bad. That becomes undefined. So here I'm just making it greater than 0. So x squared minus 9 is greater than 0. And then when we're done, you can always check your answer and kind of make sense of the problem. Okay, remember how you got kind of scared of the symbol here? Just pretend it's an equal sign. So how would I solve that? How would I solve for x? Add 9. I have x squared is greater than 9. How do you get rid of the power of 2 there? You're going to have x is greater than plus or minus 3. Okay, what does this mean? X is greater than 3, and x is, in this case, you're actually dividing by a negative, so this would be less than negative 3. Let me show it to you in a different way. And this is kind of better because this kind of goes back to what we've learned previously. Let's just say we didn't solve it by the square root. Let's just say we solved it by, so I'm showing you a second way how to solve it. I think the second way will make more sense because we've done this one. So let's just say I factor it. I have x squared plus 0x minus 9 greater than 0. So let's factor it. Remember, we do only the x when a is equal to 1. A times c is? And your b value? 2 numbers that multiply to be negative 9 but add to be 0. Well, remember, when your b value is 0, it's always the same number. One is positive, one is negative. So I have positive 3, negative 3. So I have x plus 3, x minus 3 is greater than 0. Now if I set each of these equal to 0 and subtract 3 over here, x is equal to negative 3, and over here, x is equal to positive 3. Well, what would we do with inequalities before? Class, with the celebrity story, when your interest in someone else is greater than, what do? You split up. So remember that. Okay? Remember this idea. Okay. Now to give you guys some number sense, you need to test it. Everyone say test. And my number line here is not drawn to scale. I'm just kind of drawing so you get a visual. And then we need to test some points. Let me zoom in here. Class, what's the number to the left of negative 3? Someone said negative 6. Inside? Always try to pick 0 if you can, anywhere in there. And over here? 5. Someone said 4. Okay. Now you could use your calculator, but let me just do this by hand so it makes sense to you, okay? Negative 6 plus 3, what is that? Negative 3. Negative 6 minus 3. Negative 9. Negative 9 times negative 3. Positive 27. 27 greater than 0. True. Okay. 0. 0 plus 3. Positive 3. 0 minus 3. 3 times a negative 3. Is negative 9 greater than 0? False. So we're doing our test points, okay? So if you're not seeing it, let me write it out. 4 plus 3. 4 minus 3. 7 times 1. Is 7 greater than 0? True. So our check marks kind of show us where the solutions are at. Does that make sense? Okay. Let's write this in integral notation. I'm going to pick all of the negative values. So back in the day, this would be an open circle, right? Less than negative 3. Open circle, greater than 3. I know that in a couple of ways. You can solve the inequalities. You can use the test points. We talked about splitting up. So over here, now we're just using integral notation. Anytime you have an arrow coming from negative numbers, what do you write? Negative infinity, parentheses or bracket. And then I stop at negative 3, parentheses or bracket. And then I do this side over here. I start at 3, parentheses or bracket. It should be a parentheses. Who told me that? Look what you did. Okay. Keep going. Goes to where? Positive infinity. And then to join those two together, you have union. Okay, so let's review what we did in this problem. We have a rational function. We need to solve the domain algebraically, meaning don't graph it. I don't want the denominator equal to 0, and I have a square root, so it's kind of like a double problem in this one. Normally we would set it greater than or equal to 0, not equal to 0. Yesterday we would put greater than or equal to 0, but in this problem I don't want it to be equal to 0, so it's just going to be greater than. You can solve it in two ways. This side, on the second side, is more you're familiar because we talked about quadratic inequalities. You can go back and watch a video. Basically it just means to factor and then solve, and then the inequality part is you have to do the test points. Okay? Here's a hint about rational functions. Everyone say factor. Anytime you have a quadratics, 99.9% of the time, I'm going to give you ones that will just factor. Okay? So what should you do to solve the quadratics? Factor it.